Coming up on First at 4, Governor Beshear announces more state funding to help people here in eastern Kentucky whose homes were destroyed by last year's flood. And Breathitt County's judge executive goes on trial in Jackson.
Plus, we continue to see showers in the forecast as we head through the rest of the work week, and some of that rain could be heavy at times. The latest breakdown coming up as Mountain News First at 4 starts now.
Dedicated to eastern and southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News First at 4.
Good afternoon, I'm Steve Hensley. First at 4, Governor Andy Beshear says the federal government will be assisting hundreds of homeowners impacted by natural disasters in 2021. He says the process for help for last year's victims is coming too. The assistance will help hundreds of people devastated by the December 2021 tornadoes, as well as some flooding victims last year here in eastern Kentucky. WYMT's Bill Pendleton has more on what was said today.
Governor Beshear says this is a big help for people that are still reeling from natural disasters that took place in Kentucky, from western Kentucky to eastern Kentucky a year and a half to 2 years ago. Beshear announced that the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD, will be allocating $123 million to help people rebuild. Most of the money is going to 3 western Kentucky counties and to Breathitt County, which experienced devastating flooding in the spring of 2021. Numerous other counties in eastern and central Kentucky that experienced flooding that year will also be receiving funding. All in all, it's estimated to result in 600 new homes in the impacted regions.
We're going to spread the wealth to those who need it the most. If you are someone who is impacted, I'd encourage you to reach out to your local nonprofit housing partners or your local housing authority about the disaster recovery program.
And Beshear says that this help does not impact those that were devastated by flooding last year in eastern Kentucky, but he says he believes they are on the fast track to receive it. In Frankfort, Phil Pendleton, now back to you.
Phil, thank you. And I think I misspoke and said in the lead-in that it was last year's flooding. This is 2021 natural disasters, which of course there was still plenty of flooding in eastern Kentucky that year too. Applications for this assistance will start on May 1st. The criminal trial is underway for Breathitt County Judge Executive Jeff Noble. WYMT's RJ Johnson is at the courthouse with a look at the charges.
Jeff Noble was indicted back in 2019 on charges of abuse of public trust, first-degree official misconduct, buying lumber with county money, and theft by unlawful taking. Court documents show that Noble also reportedly used more than $900 of public money to buy diesel for personal use. We have reached out to the Commonwealth's attorney, Miranda King, but have not heard back. In Jackson, RJ Johnson, WYMT Mountain News.
All right, RJ, thank you. We'll have much more on this coming up tonight at 6.
All in all, it's been a pretty nice day all throughout the region. As a matter of fact, average, perfectly average in the book today. The look outside right now shows, yeah, we're seeing pretty nice conditions. Just some fair weather clouds already moving into our Buffalo Mountain camera in southern Perry County. 72 the reading there, 69 in London Corbin Airport with, again, a few more of those clouds scooting in. We ended up not far from average today. Middle and upper 60s, even some low 70s sneaking in. Enjoy it now because we've got some cooler air on the way. Your forecast first tonight, I think we stay dry through much of the evening, but notice those temperatures don't get nearly as chilly tonight as they've been the last few nights. I'll have the details, though, on when we see a return to some chilly air and the showers that come with it in a few minutes. Steve?
All right, Evan, thank you. King Charles's coronation is set for May 6th as he prepares to be crowned in Britain next week. Some are looking back at the last coronation he attended for his mother when he was just 4 years old. CBS's Tina Kraus has the story from London.
When Queen Elizabeth II was crowned as monarch back in 1953, her 4-year-old son, Prince Charles, the Duke of Cornwall, made history.
The Duke of Cornwall sees his mother crowned.
Becoming the first child in British history to witness their mother's coronation as sovereign.
When you look at those pictures of a young Prince Charles at his mother's coronation, watching that spectacle, and now 70 years on, he will be crowned at Westminster Abbey. It's quite an extraordinary thing.
The little prince wasn't there for the entire coronation. He was brought in just before the crowning, standing between his grandmother, the Queen Mother, and his aunt, Princess Margaret.
There were times where he looked a little bit bored. It's a long service for a small child.
This photo shows the future king looking rather glum. Decades later, Prince Charles told his biographer he was upset because the palace barber cut his hair too short and had plastered it down with gel.
Prince Charles.
He was in better spirits after the ceremony, practicing his royal wave from the balcony of Buckingham Palace, one he would perfect over the 7 decades he waited to become king. When the now 74-year-old is crowned at Westminster Abbey next week, his 9-year-old grandson, Prince George, will play a part. The future king will watch the historic event from almost the same spot where King Charles stood as a child. Tina Kraus, CBS News, London.
Prince George, who is Prince William's son, will be a page of honor for the coronation. One of his biggest roles is to carry the long and heavy train of the king's robe as he walks through the abbey to be crowned. The Federal Aviation Administration is creating an independent safety review team to investigate near collisions of commercial airliners at major U.S. airports. The group is set to meet next month with a goal of recommending safety and reliability improvements this fall. The team consists of former FAA officials and a previous head of the National Transportation Safety Board. It also has piloting and air traffic control experts as well as a one-time astronaut. February's massive toxic train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, cost Norfolk Southern millions of dollars. The company attributes a nearly $400 million profit loss to the train derailment. The disaster caused evacuations and massive cleanup efforts. Norfolk Southern has committed nearly $31 million in compensation and support to the East Palestine community. That is just a fraction of what the company continues to make. French nationals and European citizens evacuated from Sudan arrived at Paris's Charles de Gaulle Airport this morning. The evacuees, who were first taken to Djibouti before traveling to France, described the situation in Sudan as chaotic and violent. The conflict has raged between forces loyal to the country's 2 top generals since April 15th. Some lulls have been long enough for evacuations of hundreds of foreigners by air, land, and sea. Off the Philippine coast today, American and Filipino forces pummeled a ship with a barrage of high-precision rockets, airstrikes, and artillery fire. The strikes are their largest war drills in Philippine waters, facing the disputed South China Sea that would likely antagonize China.
So learning is always happening. Every time we have the opportunity to train on a large-scale element like this, we always take away the learning points more than the successes, because the learning points will allow us to be more successful in the future.
Washington and Beijing have been on a collision course over China's actions to defend its territorial claims in the South China Sea. Beijing's goal of annexing Taiwan has added to the tensions. Coming up on First at